Welcome, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman. A few years ago, I wrote and performed a solo show called The Edge of Every Day, which was an exploration of the rough edges and contradictions we all face and grapple with. The show hit a nerve, and the relevance of the topic would only grow over time, more than I could have foreseen. So, here we are. Real talk with real people, sharing stories and perspectives that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe, on the edge of every day. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on the edge of every day here on talkradio.nyc. Tonight, we are live in the Hive with best-selling author and art of change expert Pamela Thompson for our 54th episode entitled Embracing the Edge of Change. For those of you who have become loyal listeners here on the Edge of Every Day, thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with me and my guests. Our numbers are growing, and I have you to thank. I couldn't do it without you. Please continue to share this podcast with friends and family and take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sandra Bargman, on the Edge of Every Day. And if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to The Edge. If you like what you hear tonight and you want to check out my past episodes with my inspiring guests, you can find them on talkradio.nyc, on your favorite podcast platforms, and on my YouTube channel. Again, that's Sandra Bargman, on the Edge of Every Day. This show is about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradoxes and contradictions live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both about ourselves and about the world around us. Listen, we live in edgy, tumultuous times, and people are complex. The more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks again for tuning in. And without further ado, it is time to introduce our guest this week. Pamela Thompson is a certified life and business coach, professional facilitator trained in conflict resolution, and a global health and health promotion expert with a bachelor's in nursing and a master's in science. She has created 2 successful process management consulting businesses since the early 1990s and is currently president of Creative Life Coaching and Consulting. Pamela has experienced many transitions throughout her life, including living and working on 5 continents, separation and divorce, burnout, and finding the love of her life. She is passionate about sharing her insights, stories, and actionable strategies on how to navigate change, lead in uncertain times, and thrive in life and work globally through experiential workshops, speaking, and writing. She is the author of the #1 best-selling book, Learning to Dance with Life, a guide for high-achieving women, and her recent international bestseller, The Exploits of Minerva, Reflections of a 60-something Woman. Pamela is committed to making a difference and is the president and founder of the national member-based nonprofit Female Wave of Change Canada. Pamela Thompson, welcome to the Edge of Every Day.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I'm excited and honored to be here.
Oh, well, I'm honored that you agreed to come on. As I was telling Pamela while we were pre-chatting before coming on, I have had just a glorious time researching her. And, you know, Pamela, listen, folks, this woman is a badass. I mean, there's nothing what I just read is like the tip of the iceberg. Getting a juicy CV. I mean, I'd be here all night reading her CV. She is quite accomplished. So again, I thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
So I love to tell everyone listening in how I know my guests. And I met Pamela through a friend of mine, someone I met doing this podcast, Jennifer Kaufman. You may recall her show about the trauma and the growth that she made through being present during the Boston Marathon bombings. Yeah. So Jennifer and I have become good friends, Pamela, and she wrote to me and said, you have to have Pamela Thompson on your show. And so I looked at your website and I was like, I do. And then I attended your wonderful book launch for the Exploits of Minerva and got to hear all about it. And I'm so excited for you to be sharing with our guests about that. That was a wonderful book launch.
Well, thank you. It was fun. I love co-creating and implementing events. That's one of my sweet spots. I love doing that.
Ooh, love that. Yeah, I do too. And I think those online book launches are key for new books. I have found that the people that are doing that are really getting good, with the timing of getting it into, driving people into purchasing your book in a certain window. It's really a great thing. So if you're listening in, folks, about ready to write a book or have a book, pay attention to the wisdom of Pamela Thompson about all of that.
Well, thank you much.
So, which we'll get into a little later, but I want to focus in a little on change, my jam, your jam. But before I do, I have a question I love to ask my guests. It was asked of me, and I heard it on a podcast too, and I just loved it. And there's so many directions you can go in asking this, but particularly you, but so all of my guests do a plethora of things. They wear so many different hats and they're so accomplished in so many directions. And as we really navigate our understandings of what identity even means in today's world, what identity do you lead with in your life, Pamela?
Ooh, that's a really good question. What identity do I lead with in my life? Well, because I wear two hats, I probably have two identities that I lead. If I'm speaking on leadership, because, I'll speak a little bit more later about Female Wave of Change and Female Wave of Change Canada. That's all about feminine leadership. So I lead as an authentic feminine leader, heart-centered, collaborative, inclusive, I hope, in that way. I guess when I think about it, those feminine leadership qualities, I probably lead with, or I would hope to lead with in all of my life. So I probably lead with those feminine leadership qualities that men can have as well. Just saying. Yeah. But a lot of time, they have not been the qualities that a lot of our organizations and systems have been based on. And now they're coming to the fore, right? And so, I guess that's how I lead, or I like to think that I lead from a heart-centered place, compassionate, from a place of understanding, from a place of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And and
that's absolutely how I see you. And it embraces all of the work that you do. You are just a heart-centered change maker.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And a change embracer. And, when I was asked that, I at the time I said probably comedian. I lead with the comedian in me. But honestly, I as you just distilled into that, as I was talking, I went, no, I think I lead as an edge walker, as somebody who walks the edges and leads with being a change maker. So I think it's the same for me. So I loved your answer. I loved watching you get down to it. That's what I love about that question. So, and speaking of change, we talk a lot. I talk a lot, and we talk a lot on the edge of every day about our fear of change. And because that's, second to the edge of grief and the edge of death, that's probably the biggest edge that we all navigate, is our fear of change. So why is embracing change so important, Pamela?
Well, it's important for a number of reasons, Sandra. When we don't embrace it, I'll start with the other side. When we resist change,
Yeah.
it has negative impacts on our bodies, our minds, our relationships, our businesses, our work, and our bottom line, right? And so, yeah. And so why is it important to embrace it? Because if you embrace it, you can enjoy the journey and you can see it through a different lens. And instead of reacting, and I like to slip in here that physiologically we're all hardwired to fear change. It's very normal because our amygdala, that part of our brain, is constantly searching the environment for things that are different and things that potentially would be a threat. And then it causes our body to release stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, epinephrine, hormones that typically put it into fight, flight, or freeze. And in all of these situations, we can't make really good decisions, right?
Right.
And so what we want to do ideally is learn to move quickly through that process and embrace change and see it as the opportunity and see the silver linings in the change.
Yeah. Well, that is just the perfect overarching umbrella for everything that we're going to talk about today. But you just said we're all hardwired and our amygdala, connects with the fight flight. But, I have to say over the course of probably since, of the last 60 years with the insanity on the political scene, I have wondered if there is a certain type of person who's hardwired to, when I talk about politically, hardwired for sameness and lack of diversity. But in this case, it's also, is there a certain person who might be more wired to embrace change? Maybe more so. I'm sure there's a spectrum, and I always think of people, there's a spectrum, but when was the moment that you personally connected to understanding that you were down with change, that you liked change? I mean, I not that I want to speak for you. I'm assuming that you embrace change well. I've heard in some of the things I've listened that you get bored really easy, which I can so relate to. But I had my aha moment, like, oh, you're really okay with change, more so than the average person. When was that moment for you?
Well, I have to dig deep for that one. A bunch of things are coming up. I guess when it really came to the fore is when I launched my first coaching business in 2009. I had a business coach, right? And I had initially, I wasn't sure. I had a very broad mandate or target market I was focusing on. And she said, Pam, do you think you know anything about life transitions? And I'm like, I think so. And then I reflected on my life and I thought, oh my goodness sakes. So I thought, yeah, I know something about this. So so that was probably the moment when it really hit me between the eyes, so to speak, Sandra. And I'm like, yes, I do. And then there was another moment more recently when I realized that many of the changes that had happened in my life, I had initiated. And it's quite different when you initiate a change than when it comes having it out of the blue and is imposed on you. And so when I reflected on that, and then we were in a situation where my partner, he was headhunted off LinkedIn, and we had this amazing house in the beautiful Okanagan Valley in BC, which is wine country. We could see the lake. We could walk the 3 vineyards from our house, and he got headhunted to come to Victoria. And it was an incredible opportunity for him, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like he went along, and I sort of said, well, I need to give myself some time here. And then I put our place on LinkedIn on Airbnb for the summer. came to Victoria and realized I could live here. But it took me at least 6 months to really get into it, because it was really an eye-opener and an awakening moment to realize how much of the change in my life had been self-initiated and how different it is when it isn't.
Yes, that's fascinating. Yeah. So, we've got to go to break, but of course my mind goes to, who are the people that love to self-initiate change, and who, versus I don't want to initiate change. I want things to stay the same, but we're not going to answer that. We're going to leave that hanging in the air. When we come back after our break, I want to ask you, you talked about life transitions, and that was your aha moment. And I love I just got your newsletter, and, I read something in your blog about what is the difference between life transition and life change. And I loved the clarity that you offered in that. And I want to start with that when we come back after our break. And then we're going to move into some more questions around change. And then we're going to dive into the exploits of Minerva when we come back with Pamela Thompson on the Edge of Everyday. Stay tuned.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours on the edge of
every day. And we are back with Pamela Thompson. So let's dive into what is the difference between a life transition and life change.
Well, I like to, and I'm paraphrasing an organizational theorist called William Bridges, and sadly he's passed, but based on over 30 years of work with people and organizations, he identified this difference. And what he said was that a life change is something external and situational, something that you can see, like a pink slip or a separation agreement, whereas a transition is something internal and psychological.
Yes.
It's the internal psychological work that we do to reorient and readjust ourselves to a new situation and our new external reality.
Yeah.
And what happens is, if I may, a lot of people do the life change, but they don't do the transition. So they keep, Sandra, repeating the same patterns in their lives often and remaining unhappy and unfulfilled.
And ultimately not seeing the ultimate gift in what change brings into our lives. If we are capable of coming to a mental place where change can suck a lot of times, the change that's imposed on us. But if we can embrace it from the standpoint of, I know that there's a silver lining here somewhere, if I'm willing to stay present to it and willing to work with this, be uncomfortable and work with this scenario.
Totally.
Yeah. So, I just want to dive right into the exploits of Minerva, and all my questions around change can come through talking about Minerva. So, because I just love that name. So who is Minerva, and what is she teaching us about change? How did you connect with her?
Well, Minerva is sensitive and playful, and she believes that life is an adventure to be lived to the fullest, and that's basically been her mantra. And Minerva, as you may know, Sandra, she was the most revered Roman goddess, and she was known for her knowledge and wisdom. And she often is seen with her sacred owl shoulder. And in my book,
like Athena, folks, for those of you who have seen The Edge of Every Day, the solo show.
And so, and the Minerva in my book as well does have an owl on one of her shoulders, just so you know.
Wow, I love this. Well, this makes me, I have to come clean, folks. I have not read the book, but I'm going to read the book for certain, I will get to it, but I've read all about the book. But I will get to it. So I'm thrilled to know that she has an owl on.
Yeah. So the other part of your question, can you repeat it again? You asked me Minerva, and then the second bit.
I love how I always love to go and digress and go out on limbs. So I said, what can she teach us about change, and how did you connect with her?
Okay. Well, how I connected with her is over 25 years ago. About 25 years ago, I was riding on a bike trail in Ottawa, where I used to live, and her essence came to me.
I love this.
And I was so busy. I had a busy life. I had kids who were like teenagers. I was starting my first consulting business. I didn't have time to write about Minerva, right? And so I pushed her down, if you will, or pushed her away.
So you weren't kind of freaked out that this entity and this essence was speaking to you? I mean, you don't strike me as you would be, but I wouldn't be. I would be celebrating.
Anyway, she came to me, and I sort of put her away. And then about 3 years ago, I'm going to say, she came back and said, you need to write about me. So initially I was going to write a fiction. I was going to write a novel. That's what I set out today to do. Right. And then I realized that I have a lot of experience with transitions. And there was this woman, I was new to Victoria, and I joined a newcomers club. And I met this woman, and she had recently been widowed, and she was amazing. She was in her early 60s. And she said, Pam, I came here 6 months after, we retired. We moved from one coast to the other coast in Canada. Within 6 months of coming here, the love of my life died. I met him when I was 20. I married him when I was 22. And she said, no one talks about that. They don't, you're a widow and you just get put over there. You're kind of invisible. No one asks you what it's like. No one tells, no one prepares you for it. And I thought, oh my God, it's really important to get these sort of, stories out. And so anyway, I did interview her and asked her, and she was very instrumental in identifying friends and friends of friends to interview. So then I created composite characters based on these women's stories of burnout, separation and divorce, aging, losing the love of your life, finding the love of your life. And obviously I added some of my own as well. But it was really, really fun to write. And my intention in doing it was to really help people to understand what they were going through, if they were going through something similar, so that they wouldn't feel alone. Also to help other people, men as well as women, understand other women in their lives and different things that were happening, right? And so really, I'm all about promoting understanding, because what I believe is when we understand each other, then there's way less conflict in the world. There's way more balance and peace. And so through this novel, because it's not a novel, it's really part self-help book, part memoirs.
Well, but also, I heard the phrase creative nonfiction.
Yes,
which
it
I
is creative
really loved. Yeah.
And I didn't set out to write creative nonfiction, but the editor, and the review person who reviewed my book at the publisher sent back all this stuff, and I'm like talking to my publication coordinator and saying, "Well, did she not read the genre?" And then I'm telling her about the book. She hadn't read it. That was not her role to read the manuscript. But she said, "Pam, I think it's creative nonfiction." And I thought, I didn't even know what that was, Sandra. So I got off the call and I'm Googling. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's creative nonfiction. Because it has a story, it has a hook, it has a storyline to draw you in. And at the end of the day, people often, I think, learn more or engage more with stories than they do with straight nonfiction, right?
Yeah. Oh, and this is the power of, as an actor, a storyteller, the transformational power of storytelling. I loved that this is the way that you chose to weave these lessons around transitions and change. It is very powerful, and people can really see themselves in these stories. And so how did you weave in some, if you can give us an example, another one of, you just gave that beautiful one about the woman who lost her husband in her 60s. I mean, that's really young, that she's known her whole life. What are some other ways that you wove in strategies to stay present with change, with life transitions? In this, I mean, the realness, the being with women. Expand a little bit on how you wove some of those strategies into this powerful storytelling.
Well, the context I set for this book is 6 women who've been supporting each other through a variety of life transitions for over 20 years in a women's circle. Now, Sandra, I am in a women's circle, and I've only been in it for almost 4 years now. So I understand the context, right? So that's the context I decided to use. And then we have experiential exercises. A different person facilitates every night. And sometimes we bring an exercise, something that we've used with our own clients, because, some coaches, clinical psychologists, whatever. There's a variety of different types of folks in this women's circle. So for me, what I did is, and it's interesting because I just shared some of this in an experiential last week. I shared part of my Art of Change framework in one of the chapters of the book. And so, I set the stage being in the women's circle and having, people talking about change. Do you embrace it or resist it? And the first step in my 5-step Art of Change framework is shine the light. And that is when you explore how you respond to change and why. So what I did is I put it in the book. I said, okay, and one of those things is rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of how you typically respond to change. 1 being scares me to death, 10 being I thrive on it.
Yeah.
Don't think about it too much, right? And then I said, okay, now think about another change that comes out of the blue and is imposed on you. How do you respond to it? And 9 times out of 10, leaders and change makers rate themselves 9 or 10 on the first scale and 5 or 6 on the second one.
No surprise, get it.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's one way where I did incorporate some of my own work and some of the tools into the book.
I love it. Well, and I love that the notion that there, like all things, there's a spectrum to understanding your resistance. So if there's a spectrum, this means that there's always ways that you can keep growing and learning how to embrace change, which circles back to my question. Is there a person that is wired to embrace change a little bit more than someone else? And those people who might not be wired know that they can, continually expand once they see how they're resisting change, then once you see it, you can then make some choices as to how you move through it. And of course, we will ask you when we come back after the break, what are some of those strategies? When we come back after the break, we're also going to dive into your Female Wave of Change organization. I was very excited to read about that. So, folks, when we come back with Pamela Thompson on the Edge of Every Day, stay tuned.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be Frank About Health to advocate for all of us.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours on the edge of every day.
We are back with the magnificent Pamela Thompson, change maker extraordinaire. So before we dive into this organization, I want to make sure that we touch on these skills. Now that we've talked about ways people are resistant to change, some of the skills for personal or relational or even structural or organizational change. But I think, there's a set of things that people can be working on that works both personally and within a work situation. So what are some of those skills that you highlight in your work, in your workshops and with your clients that are helpful with embracing change?
Okay, that's a complex question.
Yeah.
One of the skills, one of them is helping people to get out of their heads and into their bodies.
Yes,
because
love that.
Change is not, we don't do it all in our heads. And if we do, we don't really do it. And so that's the whole point. And so I've studied mindfulness, and as you probably have too. And so, mindfulness, walking, meditation, doing body scanning before you get out of bed in the morning, really getting a handle on getting into your body and noticing if you have pain or resistance and where it is. Yeah. Having massages regularly, being in nature where you can get rid of the noise, in your environment and just really be, right? Rather than doing. So it's partly learning more to be present. These are some. The other thing is having a process to help you to apply to any change, whether it be personal or professional. So my Art of Change framework, if I may, I'll just briefly share that it has these 5 steps. And as you move through the steps, you learn how do you respond to change and why, which I shared before the break. And then you also learn about a typical transition and what happens with each transition. And each transition has an ending, a neutral zone, and a new beginning. And there's work associated with each of these, as I mentioned before. And so the work of the ending, the end of the job, the end of a relationship, the end of living in one place and moving to another, is letting go. Relationship, letting go of anger, letting go of your status as a couple, letting go of, could be your financial security, for example. And I've also added to William Bridges' work, identifying lessons learned. If you were in a relationship and the person wasn't a very good communicator, well, the next time around, you want a really good communicator, perhaps, right? Yeah. For example, right?
Yeah, if you've being real about,
if you've gone after positions for the money, and then you end up getting bored after 2 or 3 years, well, maybe you need to then look at your passions and choose something related to your passions.
Yeah, and cultivate the courage to step into that. As another,
totally. Yeah. So the ending, the work, letting go, and identifying lessons learned, and then the work of that neutral zone, which is the scariest place. It's also the opportunity to be creative. Is that you get clear and you envision that relationship, that career, that life of your dreams, right?
Kind of like COVID did for us.
Totally it did. And then the next one is the new beginning, where you take action, what you envisioned in the middle phase there. And so, and this works one-on-one with clients. I do it one-on-one with coaching clients. It also works with groups, and it works with leaders in their teams, particularly before or they're just starting on a change process, because what it does is it enables people to identify how they typically respond to change, and then rumble, as Brené Brown would say, rumble about it. And it's not about, if I'm a 9 or a 10 and you're a 5, then I'm better than you. It's about, okay, opening up the opportunity to discuss, how can we support you when you go through this change? Because you will probably need more support than we will, or I will, because I love change. It's not your jam, but it's my jam. So how can we support you? And you open up that, rather than pulling people, kicking and screaming, and you're wondering why they're so angry. Well, because it really bothers them. It's really hard for them, right?
Yeah, just learning to be really curious about each other and present to one another and empathetic and compassionate, all of those things. This is a perfect seg into feminine wave of change, because women are so brilliant at that. That's feminine leadership. Thank you. Actually, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I'm going to let you answer that, but that would be my understanding. So tell us about this. What's the name of it? Where's the Female Wave of Change organization that you are a part of? It's a global organization. I'll let you take it away.
Yes, it is, Sandra. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's an organization that was founded by a woman called Ingun Bol in the Netherlands about 6 years ago. And she had been in management and leadership. Her background's in engineering, and realized that many times she was sent on leadership and management training, there wasn't anything related to her role as a woman. And, she left when her early 40s, she left corporate, and she did international consulting, and she realized, anyway, so she did a lot of work around the world, and then came back, and then she was in the Netherlands and was asked to coordinate a conference, or she got the idea that she wanted women to reshape the future and accelerate change for a better world. And so in order to get this workshop or this conference off the ground, she founded a foundation called Female Wave of Change. Perfect. Anyway, so that's how it happened initially. And she changed her profile on LinkedIn. And within a very short space of time, these women from all over the world got in touch and said, this is amazing. How can we be part of this? So anyway, I met Ingun on LinkedIn in 2018, and we had a Skype call. That was kind of more the thing than Zoom then.
Right.
And we realized we had a lot in common, so we kept on each other's radar. And I had a radio show in 2019 called The Art of Change, where
fabulous.
I interviewed inspiring women leaders and change makers from around the world. And of course, I interviewed Ingun, and I was just amazed. In a year, she had grown organically, her organization. It was in 20 countries. Anyway, we stayed on each other's radar. And just before COVID hit, she got in touch with me and she said, we need a new ambassador for British Columbia. Do you know anybody? And then anyway, so it ended up, she interviewed me, long and short, she interviewed me with one of her board members. And at the end of the interview said, Pam, we'd like like you to be ambassador for Canada, Female Wave of Change. And I said, you mean BC, don't you? British Columbia? No, Canada. So I said, well, I have to think about that one. Anyway, so I officially joined like March 20th at 20, just after COVID hit. And one of the key, well, I meant to build the community in Canada. And I was committed to creating a legal entity. So after doing some research and getting support for research, I founded Female Wave of Change Canada as a national nonprofit in December of 2020. And we have monthly meetings with featured guests that I co-create, or one of my board members co-creates with the featured guests. Very engaging. I love facilitating. And so I like to make design interactive events. We have collective wisdom circles where women get together around a topic of interest, like dealing with change and uncertainty, for an hour and a half every month. And there's a different facilitator each month. We have 5 pillars where we develop initiatives: economy, education, environment, health, and humanity. And a group of us created, myself and 5 other group members, co-created the Becoming a Mother Earth Ambassador Project, which is an experiential outdoor education program for girls ages 9 to 12 to teach them about the mother tree, Mother Earth, and how to become ambassadors in their home schools and communities.
My gosh, brilliant.
We're just moving into hopefully piloting that. So we are looking for sponsors to support us. We don't earn any money from the parent. It's all a labor of love, this work that I do with Female Wave of Change. But this is something that we've developed, and we have developed an amazing curriculum with the support of a curriculum development consultant. We just finished that off on December 15th. And we're planning to pilot the program, with a small group of girls from April to June, evaluate the pilot, and then with partners roll it out across Canada, across North America and beyond. Because this is needed for girls. And it also integrates these feminine leadership qualities, because we liken the mother tree in the forest. Because they're all about building community, being compassionate. If one tree is dying,
communication.
You threw the mycelium. Yes. Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, okay. So whoever's out there listening that knows of sponsorship for this, clarion call to be in touch with Pamela Thompson. And we will, of course, give all of your contact information in the show notes. But what is the website for Female Wave of Change Canada?
It is FWOCcanada.com.
Great.
Asking.
Absolutely. So I noticed that nothing's really happening in the United States with this organization.
You're right. Not a lot. There was someone they never had one for the whole state, because that's really, really big, right?
No different for you.
Well, we've got a larger population base. We have a geographical base. Yeah.
Well, and we have a bunch of different countries in this.
There was a woman in New York for a while, but then she really had to pay attention to her family and her business. So there's not a lot of states, that have, that are part of this. It's more European countries and African countries.
Amen.
South Africa, Namibia, and we also have a leadership development program called Women Leading in Change, and I'm on the faculty. I'm honored to be on the faculty. And it's a virtual leadership development program that is run out of Female Wave of Change Global. And there's faculty from all over the world and students from all over the world. So it's quite amazing.
Well, there's so many folks listening in, so many glorious ways to understand the art of change here on our planet. We have to go to break. When we come back with Pamela, I want to, of course, we're going to find out what's next for her. And maybe we'll ask her some fun questions, get a little bit more information on a couple of her other books. She says she has one other book, but she actually has 2 other books other than The Exploits of Minerva. She is, well, I'm not going to ramble on about it 1 second longer. I'm going to go to break, and then we're going to open up with that when we come back. On the Edge of Every Day with Pamela Thompson. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be Frank About Health to advocate for all of us.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours
On the edge of every day. And we are back with Pamela Thompson. So I definitely want to touch on quickly your other two books. You are a contributing author to Hot Women Rock, with that was put together by Pat Duckworth, who used to have a show here on talkradio.nyc. So what's the name of the chapter that you have in that?
Oh, you know what? I can't even remember something.
Oh, it's all good, because the reason I'm asking is I remember it relates to learning to dance with life.
It was something like dancing with life, something.
Yeah, and I love that. I love learning to dance with life. I love that idea. I love the metaphor, the creative metaphor of how you relate to creating your life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And so assuming just quickly that book is about.
Are you talking about Hot Women Rock?
No, I'm talking about learning to dance with life.
Learning to dance with life. It came out of me burning out after being in Afghanistan for 13 months. And then
see, folks, this is why we need more than 1 hour. I mean, come on. She just drops that in the last quarter.
And then working for a nonprofit for a year, doing the work of too many people at the same time. Anyway, yes, it came out of that, and I introduced the concept of what I call creative living, the conscious cultivation of improved health, happiness, fulfillment, and inner peace in your life. And there are 7 keys to creative living. The first one being listen to and trust in your body's wisdom. And then there's a number of practical strategies woven throughout. When I was writing the book, Sandra, I also was facilitating a virtual group coaching program called Staying Healthy in Body, Mind, and Spirit While Living Your Passion. And so a lot of the exercises and questions from that group coaching program are woven through the book. There's also a workbook that goes with it, or a playbook, whatever you want to say.
I like playbook.
Keep everything in the same place if you want to, for your journaling and all that sort of stuff. So I also interviewed women from 3 different continents who I perceived were high achieving women, and to validate attributes of high achieving women. So the first bit of the book talks about the attributes of high achieving women, and you get to check off how many of them you have. And you don't have to have them all. Most people have 5, but the big ones are being more. You need to do more than be and give more than be. If you do more than be and give more than receive, and you're very hard on yourself. You tend to maybe have perfectionistic tendencies. These are the ones that sort of came up most. And so anyway, so a lot of people aren't, they don't have their own businesses. They're not the Hillary Clintons of the world, but they really have a lot of these qualities. So when you look at that list, you might be surprised. Yeah. Anyway, but it really is an opportunity for people to, there's just so much stress, and we tried and worked so hard, and many of us were raised from families where you kept the goal. My dad used to say, Pam, you can do more. One more length between the docks at the cottage. You can do it, Pam. One more, right? Yeah. Which is beautiful. And it means that you feel like you always have to keep striving. So it's a journey, right? And so it's a real journey meant to support women to have more balance in their life.
Oh my
God. And dance, learn to dance with life.
Yeah, no, totally. And this, the weaving together of all of your work and how it just supports the birthing of the new feminine leadership, the birthing of the divine feminine in a more balanced way, for women to be stepping forward into a more powerful understanding of balance for themselves, and setting down, with all the DI and DEI work we're doing, white women setting down their perfectionism, and just so much the timeliness and beauty of all your work. The culmination of it is just extraordinary.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm glad you get it. It's wonderful that you get it. I'm not sure everyone does. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, and I also, the creative, again, back to the creative metaphor. I really love that because, how it lines up with change as a creative process. I love that you are very forthright in that on your website, in the understanding that, life is creative. Our internal work is also creative, and that there's a real emphasis on that. Okay, so I'm going to start helping everyone to know again where they can find you, talking about what you offer on your website, your speaking engagements, your workshops, your one-on-one client work, your 3 books, the recent one, Exploits of Minerva. All of that, you can find links to places where you can purchase the books and information about all of that on your website, which is Pamela-Thompson.com. Or Pamela Thompson.
And it's the wet one. In Scotland, they say, are you wet or a dry Thompson? It's the one with the P, Thompson.
That's cute. Very cute. I'm going to steal that, Pamela. And then Female Wave of Change. We gave that. That will be in the notes. Minerva just came out, so it might be insane for me to ask you. We don't have a ton of time, but what are your hopes for this book, and what's next for you?
Well, I'm hopeful this book will sell millions of copies. That's what I'm hopeful.
Thank you. All right, boom, right to it.
And sorry, what's your next question?
And do you have a plan for what's next for you? Like a next project, or what's percolating for you? What edges are you navigating right now, Pamela?
Well, funny you should ask. My next project is going to be a historical fiction novel with a backdrop of Afghanistan.
Oh my.
So that's it. And I also have designed a group coaching program related to women, midlife and beyond, reinventing themselves. It's sort of in the background because I really want to focus on doing this book and promoting the books that I have.
Yes.
However, that is also something that I have created, and I feel there's a need for it.
Yeah.
And all this to say, I did say 1 million copies, but the main reason is I feel the messages in my books are really relevant to women as well as men. And we need to talk about these things. So the other thing I'm going to put on my website soon, or have my assistant do, is some book club questions, because I feel like this The Exploits of Minerva is an excellent book for book clubs to get women to talk about things they normally don't talk about, right?
I thought that doing my online reading about it, that it would make a fantastic book club. Yeah, book. Is there maybe a workbook that you might create to go with it ultimately someday? Add it to your list of things I'll create in when I get a spare moment.
Do you mean a workbook to go with the Exploits of Minerva? Is that what you're saying? I haven't even thought about that, but you've planted a seed. So
even like a journal to go with it. Something to sort of guide people out in book clubs.
Yeah.
An idea, as we say here in New York. It's an idea.
Well, thank you for that. I'll calculate on that.
Well, we have come to the end of our show. And so, Pamela, I thank you so much for sharing your astounding work, your commitment to uplifting people, women in particular, but all people around the globe. Thank you for spending an hour with me and our listeners.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've totally enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you sharing with your audience my stories, but also my gifts and the organizations that I'm involved in.
Oh, a complete and deep pleasure. So before I say goodbye to my listeners, do you have one last nugget of anything you want to leave with our listeners?
Life is an adventure to be lived to the fullest.
Mm.
If you believe that, the world is your oyster and you will do things beyond your wildest dreams.
Amen. Beautifully said, Pamela. Thank you. And for those of you who are listening in, thank you for spending this hour with us. Remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. See you next week. Thank you.
This is our last dance. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure. Under pressure. Under pressure.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.